Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about The Mind's Eye by Oliver Sacks. First, I want to give some background to the man called Oliver Sacks. He has passed away for quite some time now, but among neurologists, I think he's one of the most influential there is. Since he lived before the time where everything needs to be a content, and even before the time where self-help books become the billion-dollar industry, a lot of his book is just him trying to log his journal and notes with his patients in a way that are easy on the eye and respectful to his clients. I've read most of his books, Awakenings, about the history of people who got encephalitis lethargica or a sleepy disease where a patient got into decades-long coma. In the book, Oliver described how he tried a medicine called L-Dopa that managed to wake them up, albeit in a different time. The book even got a movie adaptation starring Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. Then there's Migraine, about different type of headaches that is due to psychological issues and neurological issues. There's The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Head, about the history of people whose brain don't recognize pattern and shapes. There's Musicophilia that is filled with interesting stories about music, about how there's a man with short-term memory storage with only about 5 to 15 minutes of memory storage that can play music much longer than that, or the man who got hit in his head and then becomes a piano prodigy despite never having played piano before. Then there's Seeing Voices and Hallucination, a book that kinda reshaped our understanding of seeing horror in real life. His work has furthered our understanding of the human mind of mental health, and there are a lot of neurologists today that choose the vocation because they read his books. The Mind's Eye is another one of these examples, filled with stories from his cases with permission from his patient of course, that he published as a book. The eye function is on seeing and sending what is seeing to the brain, to our mind, and the mind will then recognize what we are seeing almost instantly. The mind's eye is filled with cases of when the minds are unable to recognize what the eye sees. The first case starts with Lillian Kalir, a pianist that had a problem. They started with suddenly unable to read musical notes despite already learning about them for her life. It's similar to pure alexia that people usually got from dementia or Alzheimer, where they slowly lose their ability to read as a whole. Lillian also started to sometimes unable to see in her right side, so she stopped driving and reading letters and words become more difficult. The MRI scan resulted in nothing, and it's not until she got a PET scan that we see some diminished metabolic activity in her visual cortex. As we follow along with her story, we see how her condition progressed as her recognition ability decreased further and further, and how it affected her life, how stairs and elevation can be harder to see, and how she can no longer purchase items in stores without people's help, and how it can be hard for her to take items from refrigerator because she did not recognize them by sight alone. And while talking about her, we also get other cases with similar symptoms, albeit with different degrees of alexia in the same chapter. Then we go to the second case about Patricia H. Story, an art gallery manager and painter who one day got a cerebral hemorrhage that caused her to develop aphasia, a loss of speech, or more accurately, a loss of language. And if this developed in a mute person, the person who can also lose their ability to perform sign language. One of Bruce Willis' symptoms from his frontotemporal dementia is this form of aphasia, where the person who got it usually has to abandon the means of communication they usually use, not by choice, but because of the need to communicate. Then the third patient, Howard Engel, is a Canadian writer who lost his ability to read after his stroke, but still retained his ability to write. Similar to the first patient, Lillian, Engel's trouble is due to his brain unable to recognize the letter he is looking at. We got so many more examples of lexical hallucination here, not just in the English language. There are even cases in Japan where there are two different kinds of writing, which is kanji and kana, katakana or hiragana, where people who suddenly becomes unable to read kanji can still read kana or vice versa. But even if the patient Howard can still write, not being able to read what he writes might means that he is no longer able to reread what he wrote and catch any mistake he made in his writing. We then go to the fourth patient, who is actually Oliver Sacks himself. He had a specific condition called prosopagnosia, where he is unable to recognize faces and other patterns like houses and buildings, which can make life challenging, of course. For one, he won't be able to read people's emotion from their faces, and worse, he is not able to recognize his own family and friends from their faces since they are unrecognizable. There was an old anime where the main character sees everyone's faces scratched out, but I don't remember the title unfortunately. The one that came out is Silent Falls when I look it up, which is a different issue altogether. The fifth case is about people who lost their three-dimensional sight. People with monocular vision, where a person loses one of his eyesight, whether from an accident or a disease like a stroke. Sue Perry or Susan Berry is also a neurologist like the author who have written her own books actually. She becomes focal point of this case and was born with cross-eyed, and as a result of this, as an adult, she sees the world differently from people with the usual stereo vision or people whose both eyes are working normally. In almost all of Oliver's book, there's a certain bittersweet and wholesomeness to the stories, and that's also the case with this one. It is written with so much empathetic care to the people he wrote about. It shows that he cared for them more than just unique cases, but because he cared about each of them as unique individual person. The Mind's Eye show not only the heartbreaking situation these people find themselves in, but also show their adaptive power to the unfortunate situation they're in. I'll even go so far as say that some of these stories are actually inspiring. To see how much people can adapt and overcome difficulties they are faced with is much more inspiring than reading any self-help book of people trying to tell you how to live your life. The first patient, Lillian, while losing the core function of her sight, she developed her hearing and touch even further just like a blind person, so she can still somewhat able to live her life. She can even compose music fully in her head now, despite the difficulties her life will eventually become. The second patient, Patricia, while losing her speech and half of her body, she becomes able to read people's emotion and intention even better than before. So despite losing more than half of herself, she becomes even happier than before by recognizing how lucky she is to have such a beautiful and caring daughter and family and friends. The third patient learned to reread using audio, and by not being able to read his own words, he learned how to build a story fully in his head, just like how Lillian composed music in her head. The fourth patient is the author himself, Oliver Sacks, and he's a legend among neurologists despite his prosopagnosis. And he also can still build meaningful relationships despite not being able to recognize faces. The sixth patient, Susan Berry, is another legend in neurology who found that you can still train your eyesight even as adults. And from her we learned that we don't have to be too worried for getting a cross eye as a child. Of course, getting stereo vision is different from far or nearsighted that needs a pair of glasses. That's a different case altogether. And of course, not all people will have the support group the people in this book have, but there's also the educational value of knowing what these people gone through and these very specific and rare symptoms that the brain can go through, which is always interesting to read for me. And what is more amazing is that all the stories inside the book, stories that are such rare symptoms and cases, had such a high degree of relatability. I think it's because the people who become the focal point of the book are the ones who contacted the author first because they've all read his previous books and they found that they have symptoms that are familiar to these unique cases, thus opening themselves to have their life explored by the author. And I think it might also be the most vulnerable book the author has written, with his own experience in not recognizing faces being put here, and at latter part of the book with his experience with a tumor that affected his eyesight. It's as scary as it sounds. Then finally, since we're talking about The Mind's Eye, of course the book is not complete without talking about the experience of being blind, which is the last case in the book. It's an amazing book whether you read it as a collection of short story, or a collection of memoir, or a collection of case studies. The book have them all. I give this a 4.25. What do you think? Are you gonna read it? Did I miss anything? Leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it.